The first time I saw the photos of those bruises, I couldn't breathe. They were on the courtroom screen, projected larger than life, purple, uneven, and grotesque against pale skin. My skin. Except they weren't mine. They belonged to the version of me that my husband, Ethan, had created, the abused wife, trembling before a jury, clutching a tissue as if I'd been broken by his hands. I sat there, frozen, watching myself in those staged photographs, my face streaked with fake tears, makeup smeared just right to suggest violence. I could hear the gasp ripple through the courtroom, the murmured sympathy. The woman beside me touched my shoulder gently, whispering, "You're so brave." Brave. The word made my stomach twist, because I wasn't the victim in that room. I was the accused. And Ethan was sitting across from me, jaw clenched, his attorney flipping through a stack of fabricated evidence, screenshots, messages, and those damn photographs. He wouldn't even look at me. That was how he wanted it. To erase me. To make me the monster. The betrayal didn't start that day. It started months earlier in tiny fractures, late nights at his office, the new cologne, the way he'd suddenly stopped talking when I entered the room. I had told myself all the usual lies. He's just stressed, he's tired, he's distant because of work. Love makes fools of us, and I was the biggest fool of all. Ethan and I had been married for 7 years. He was charismatic, a sharp-tongued defense attorney who knew exactly how to manipulate perception. I was quieter, an artist, often lost in my own thoughts. Together we'd been balanced, or so I thought. But somewhere along the way, balance turned into control. He started keeping tabs on me, where I went, who I texted, what I posted. At first it felt protective, then suffocating. When I tried to push back, he'd twist it around, say I was imagining things, overreacting, being emotional. That phrase became a blade he used whenever he needed to shut me up. The night everything changed was a stormy Thursday. The rain was thrashing the windows, and I remember standing in our kitchen, barefoot, when his phone buzzed on the counter. I shouldn't have looked. I know that. But something in me already knew. The message was from a woman named Lydia. It was short. "He's leaving soon. You can come." The words burned into me like acid. My hands trembled as I scrolled up, but he'd already deleted most of their messages. Still, one photo remained, a mirror selfie of Lydia, wearing the blue dress I'd bought last Christmas. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just stood there, staring, the rain pounding harder outside. When Ethan came home, drenched and smelling faintly of whiskey and cologne, I was still in the kitchen. "Who's Lydia?" I asked, my voice steady. He froze for a fraction of a second before his expression softened into practiced confusion. "Who?" I showed him the phone. He laughed. Actually laughed. "God, you're unbelievable, Ava," he said, grabbing the phone from my hand. "She's an associate from the firm. You think I'd risk everything for her?" I remember that moment like a photograph. The flicker of contempt behind his smile, the way he turned the accusation on me. He gaslighted me so cleanly that by midnight, I was the one apologizing. For weeks after, I tried to convince myself it was a misunderstanding. I buried my suspicion, painted, went to therapy, tried to reconnect. But trust doesn't heal. It decays quietly beneath the surface. Then one night, while sketching in my studio, I heard a sound downstairs, a faint metallic click. I crept down the hall and saw Ethan in the living room, pointing his phone at his own arm. There was a small bottle beside him. He poured some dark liquid onto his skin and pressed hard with something that looked like a textured roller. It took me a second to realize what he was doing. He was creating bruises. My heart stuttered. I wanted to confront him right then, but instinct told me to hide. I filmed him instead, silently, from the stairwell, my hands shaking so badly that the footage came out slightly blurred. When he was done, he took photos, scrolling through them with grim satisfaction. Then he texted someone. "Perfect. These will do." I backed away quietly, breath locked in my chest. My mind spun, trying to understand why. Why would he do this? Was he planning to accuse me? Was he trying to destroy me because I'd found out about Lydia? Over the next few days, he grew distant, but strangely polite, too polite. He'd pour me wine, kiss my forehead, talk about the future. It was a performance. I could feel the shift, the way predators circle before they strike. 2 weeks later, I was served divorce papers. In them, Ethan accused me of domestic abuse. The world tilted. My hands went numb. He claimed I'd become violent, that I'd thrown things, screamed at him, left him with visible injuries. He had photos. He had witnesses, apparently neighbors who'd heard fights. It was a masterclass in fabrication. And the most horrifying part? People believed him. My lawyer, Danielle, was skeptical but cautious. "Ava, we'll fight this," she said, but I could see doubt in her eyes. The evidence was damning. Every message he'd sent me had been twisted out of context, sarcastic jokes read like confessions, private texts edited to sound threatening. Ethan was playing both prosecutor and victim. I felt stripped of identity, of truth. My art stopped. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Friends avoided me, whispering behind my back. The only person who stayed was my sister, Maya. "You have to fight him," she said one night, sitting across from me as I stared at the dark window. "He's lying. We both know what he's capable of." "But how?" I whispered. "He has everything." Maya's eyes sharpened. "Then you need something he doesn't know you have." That was when I remembered the video. It had been weeks since that night, and I hadn't dared look at it again. But when I pressed play and saw him bruising himself in the lamplight, I felt the first flicker of power return. Still, I hesitated. If I used it, I'd destroy him, but also expose everything about our marriage. The manipulation, the humiliation, the years of quiet control I'd let pass as love. Was I ready for that? When the trial began, Ethan looked immaculate in his tailored suit, every word rehearsed. He wept at the right moments, described his fear, his pain. He even brought Lydia to testify, as his friend who had seen the marks. Every word out of her mouth sliced into me. By the time the prosecution finished, I was trembling. My hands were cold. Danielle squeezed my wrist gently. "When it's your turn," she whispered, "you tell your truth. That's all we need." But truth alone wasn't enough. Not anymore. I looked across the courtroom at Ethan. His expression was smug, barely hidden behind his mask of sorrow. He thought he'd already won. I took a deep breath, steadying the storm inside me, because he didn't know what was coming next. The courtroom air felt thick, charged with something invisible and cruel. Every breath scraped my throat raw. When the judge called for my testimony, I stood, legs trembling beneath the weight of weeks of fear, humiliation, and anger I had swallowed whole. Ethan's eyes followed me as I walked to the stand, cool, calculating, confident. He looked at me the way someone might look at a broken chess piece they were about to sweep off the board. I took the oath, my voice steady but soft, then sat down. The microphone in front of me caught every sound, my uneven breathing, the slight quiver when I spoke my name. My lawyer, Danielle, stepped closer. "Ava, can you tell the court about your marriage to Mr. Collins?" My fingers curled tightly around the edge of the wooden stand. "We were married for 7 years," I began, forcing each word past the lump in my throat. "At first, he was charming, kind. He made me feel seen. But over time, things changed. He became controlling. Subtle at first, then more deliberate." Ethan's attorney objected. "Irrelevant characterization. She's trying to slander my client's character." The judge lifted a hand. "Overruled. Continue, Mrs. Collins." I swallowed hard. He monitored my calls, my messages, who I met where I went. He made me doubt my own memory, told me I was overreacting whenever I caught him lying. He convinced me I was unstable. A murmur rippled through the audience. I could feel Ethan watching, expression unreadable. He looked slightly bored, as if the outcome was already predetermined. Danielle nodded at me gently, her eyes saying, "You're doing fine." Then she asked the question that cracked the silence. "Mrs. Collins, were you ever violent toward your husband?" My breath caught. "No, never." Danielle waited a moment, then asked, "Are you aware that Mr. Collins submitted photographic evidence of bruising he claimed you caused?" "Yes," I whispered. "Can you explain that to the court?" I turned my head then, finally meeting Ethan's gaze. His jaw tightened. He didn't blink. "Yes," I said, my voice finding new strength. "I can." The screen behind me flickered to life. Danielle pressed play. At first, no one understood what they were seeing. The camera angle was shaky, the light dim. Then the image sharpened. Ethan, sitting shirtless on our couch, pressing a roller against his arm, wincing theatrically as he applied dark liquid across his skin. He examined the marks in the mirror, snapping photos with his phone. Gasps echoed through the courtroom like a wave. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Another muttered, "Is that him?" Ethan's face drained of color. On the video, he picked up his phone and typed a message. "Perfect. These will do." Danielle paused the video on that frame. "Your Honor, this was recorded by my client approximately 2 weeks before Mr. Collins filed his allegations." The judge leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Ethan's attorney fumbled through his papers, trying to recover. "Objection. This could have been fabricated." "Mr. Judge," Danielle interrupted calmly, "the metadata has been verified. Timestamp, GPS location, device ID, all consistent with the night in question." The objection died midair. I didn't look away from Ethan. He wasn't smirking now. His breathing was shallow, his face twitching with disbelief. He looked trapped, cornered by the very weapon he'd built to destroy me. "Mrs. Collins," the judge said carefully, "is this your husband in the video?" "Yes," I said. "That's Ethan Collins, my husband." The courtroom was silent except for the faint hum of the air vents. The judge exhaled slowly, then turned toward Ethan. "Mr. Collins, do you have an explanation for this?" He opened his mouth, but no words came out. His attorney leaned in, whispering furiously, but it was too late. The damage was irreversible. For the first time in months, I saw Ethan's composure break. His jaw clenched, his shoulders stiffened, and that sharp, lawyer's arrogance flickered into panic. He knew what the court saw. He knew what it meant. He'd built a case out of lies, and I'd just burned it to the ground. The verdict was swift. The judge dismissed all charges against me and referred Ethan for potential perjury and evidence tampering. The gasp that escaped him when the gavel struck still echoes in my memory. A small, hollow sound of a man realizing his empire had crumbled. Afterward, I walked out of the courthouse into cold afternoon sunlight. The city moved around me, cars passing, people laughing. Life continuing as if the last few months hadn't ripped me apart. Danielle hugged me briefly before leaving for another case, and I stood alone on the courthouse steps, clutching the railing. My hands were trembling, but it wasn't fear anymore. It was release. For so long, I had lived beneath the weight of his version of me. The weak one, the emotional one, the unstable one. Now that version had died in that courtroom. What remained was the woman who had survived it. Still, freedom didn't feel like victory. It felt hollow, exhausting. I thought of all the things I'd lost. Friends who had believed his lies, neighbors who had looked at me with pity or disgust, clients who had stopped buying my art. The truth didn't erase any of that. And worse, it didn't erase the love I had once felt for him. That was the cruelest part. I still remembered the early days, the laughter, the quiet mornings, the way he'd kiss my shoulder and call me his muse. I had loved that man deeply, and he turned that love into ammunition. Maya met me later at a small cafe downtown. When she saw me, her eyes welled with tears. "You did it," she whispered, squeezing my hand. "You finally did it." I smiled faintly. "Yeah, it's over." But as I said it, I realized it wasn't. Not really. The scars he left weren't visible like the ones he'd painted onto his own skin. They lived beneath mine, hidden in the cracks of trust and fear and self-doubt. "He'll face charges," Maya said. "People will know the truth." "I don't care about that anymore," I murmured, staring into my untouched coffee. "I just want to feel real again." She was quiet for a moment. "You will." Outside, it began to rain, softly at first, then harder. The sound against the window was steady, cleansing. For a moment, I closed my eyes and let it wash over the noise in my head. When I finally went home, the house was empty. His things were gone. The silence felt unfamiliar, too wide, but also strangely peaceful. I walked through each room, the living room where I had once hidden in fear, the kitchen where I had found that first text, the staircase where I'd filmed him bruising himself. Each place had been a battlefield, and now it felt like sacred ground reclaimed. I stopped in my studio. The half-finished painting on the easel waited for me, a swirl of colors frozen in uncertainty. I picked up the brush, my hand hovering for a long moment before touching the canvas again. The first stroke was shaky, but it was mine. As I painted, I thought about truth, the way it can destroy, but also rebuild. Ethan had tried to rewrite my story, turn me into a villain, a victim, a ghost. But standing there, brush in hand, I realized something I hadn't before. He had taken everything from me except my voice. And now I had taken it back. Hours passed. The rain slowed. When I finally stepped back, I saw what I had painted without meaning to. Two figures standing apart, one fading into shadow, the other stepping into light. It wasn't perfect. It didn't need to be, because it was honest. And for the first time in years, so was I. Weeks later, I received a letter from Ethan's lawyer. He'd accepted a plea deal. No jail time, but permanent disbarment. His career was over. His reputation in ashes. The man who had weaponized truth had been undone by it. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Some nights, I still dream about the courtroom. The hush, the flicker of the video, the look in his eyes when the truth caught him. It doesn't haunt me anymore. It reminds me of what I survived. People still ask me how I found the courage to expose him. I never know how to answer, because courage isn't loud. It's the quiet decision to keep breathing when someone tries to steal your air. It's hitting play when your voice has been buried in someone else's story. That day, I didn't just win a case. I reclaimed my life, and no one, not even the man who once called me his, will ever take that from me again.